Hi, we're this morning as part of the Social Pedagogy Development Network and Breaking the Cycle. We're here this morning to talk to Chrissie, who's going to talk about her experiences of care and being in the care system as a young person. So Chrissie, if I could just turn to you and say, just tell us a little bit about how long you were in care.
I was in care from the age of 4. I was in care from the age of 2 because my mum had got breast cancer and she had her first breast removed, and she never recovered fully from that, and then she had the second one removed, and she passed away when I was 4 years old. So I was in care permanently from then. My father died when I was 5, so I was an orphan. So the youngest went into care because I'm from a family of 19.
Right.
And the siblings wasn't allowed to have me because of the abuse that had gone on in the family. So that's why I went into care as well as.
So you had a difficult start?
Yeah, and I was in care for 14 years.
Okay. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
I always felt from the age of 10 I couldn't understand why I was there. Else in this environment where you had no choices of anything. You didn't have a choice of what you wanted to eat. You didn't have a choice of what clothes you wore. I could never grasp it and totally rebelled. I hated it because it was constantly people saying you've got to do this, you've got to eat this, you've got to have that. I just couldn't grasp of being institutionalised.
Yeah.
But then reality hit in. I'd got nobody. I was an orphan, so somebody had got to take responsibility of me.
Yeah.
So the authorities took the responsibility of me.
And how do you think? Do you have any sort of clear memories of living at home and
I never, ever lived at home.
Yeah. So,
I can't remember ever living at home.
Yeah.
I remember going to a place, I think I was about 3 years old, called Roadcliffe Manor, just near Bradgate Park, and it was run by nuns, and it was totally godly, everything. You prayed. For a 3-year-old to learn to pray and be strip washed and be treated like that, that always stuck in, that still sticks in my mind.
So it must have been very difficult.
Very, because I had nowhere to go.
And you had experiences of foster care as well, was that right?
No.
No, but it was just purely residential care.
Purely residential all through my life.
Okay. And so
I did get offered to go to foster homes.
Yeah.
And I rebelled because there were such posh people.
Yeah.
And I'd not lived that kind of life. I'd spend like 6 weeks assessment there.
Yeah.
Absolutely loathed it. Because I've been institutionalised all my life.
Yeah.
And to be put in a family that was, quote, normal, whatever normal is in our world, to say, oh, galoshes and dinners this time, we're doing this, we're doing that. I wasn't used to people being posh around me.
Mm-hmm.
So I rebelled, and then hence they didn't want to foster me, so back in the system again.
Right, so that was a difficult experience.
Very.
Did you feel that the adults that were looking after you, they particularly cared for you, or how did you feel about the people
I
that
just
were
saw
looking
the
after
staff was doing it as a job.
Yeah.
There's no love there, but it was different. You had to get different staff at different homes. So when you move to one residential home and you go to another, it's like you're starting again. You've got to get used to that staff, and that staff's got to get used to you. So you constantly pushed around from pillar to post. I mean, from Roadcliffe Manor, I went to Camden Road. I was at Camden Road for 5-6 years. Hence, I met Pat there, who was a social worker. So I had no faith in social workers whatsoever. I had social workers that had not had any children telling me what I can and cannot do. At review meetings, they'd make all the decisions for you. Staff make decisions for you. People say you have choices in this world, but when them choices are taken away, you don't have a choice. And if you don't do what they say, you're then moved on to another children's home because they class you as being rebellious. So you moved on to a stricter place each time.
Right. Can you remember any time when you were in care where you did develop a relationship with a particular person in a sort of a positive way?
No, not really. I had more confidence in my school teachers than I did with the staff.
Okay.
Because everything was routine. Breakfast, you didn't have a choice for breakfast, but you'd have to do the washing up after, you'd have to have a chore. Dinner, everything was a chore, everything was routine. Your clothes were never your own, your toys were never your own. I remember getting a doll from the Salvation Army. I must have been 6 years old, and I will never forget it. It got an arm missing and a leg missing and the eye was poked out, and I used to say, well, why have I got a broken doll? And it was, don't be ungrateful, it's a disabled doll. So I learnt about disabled people and never having new things, never having new clothes, never always having what other kids had worn. So you don't have any faith in the system.
But in our conversations before, you mentioned that there was one worker that did stand out.
Pat came. I knew Pat when I was in Camden Road because she used to come and visit somebody else there. And Simon used to come down there and play football with the lads. And I used to think, why can't I be in that kind of family? And I used to abscond quite a lot and go to social services, and the police would just take me back. And I lost contact with that because then I moved to different children's home. I went to the Beaches, which was horrendous, with Frank Beck and things.
Yes.
It was horrendous. I was actually tied to a chair and tattooed on.
Right.
And I was told if I ever told anybody that I wouldn't have a life, they would take my life. And we had a bungalow in the grounds, and the school was in the grounds, so nobody ever saw you. And we'd always be in pyjamas and put in the bungalow because we were rebelled, and that's where the bungalow, if you rebelled, that's where you was put. And nobody came to see me, no family, so staff had total control.
Yeah.
And I rebelled that much there, and physically, mentally abused there so much. I absconded so much that they actually had a review and sent me to another place called Knoll Hill in Kenilworth, which had cells and everything. It was like a ball stall, but I'd done nothing wrong to be there, not criminally wrong. Yeah, I rebelled in the children's home quite a lot, but I left there at 16. I ran away, never went back, but still had a social worker till I was 21. And went to work in Stratford-upon-Avon, got myself a job, and still had a social worker there, and used to go and visit her. And my grandma passed away, so I had to go back to Leicester, and never went back to Stratford, and got into a relationship that was more or less controlling, and domestic violence, sexual abuse, prostitution, which was horrendous. And he went to prison and I was pregnant, had my son, and they thought he was totally blind, so I told a social worker, hey, Pat hence became my social worker because she was a social worker for the blind and partially sighted. So I felt great that this person who I'd met years and years ago had now come back into my life and believed in me, because nobody believed in me. Only Pat. And I think if she hadn't have come in my life, I would have either committed suicide or I'd have been dead anyway. But I never had no faith in social workers whatsoever, and then to think, oh, I've got to have a social worker in my life because my son needs to be registered. And then when I found out it was Pat, I built up that relationship with her, and I confided in her, and the trust was there, and she believed in me as well, as a person. But it took 26 years. And the system had totally fucked up my head and my life. And I think if she hadn't have come in my life, I wouldn't be here now, talking to you. Because she believed in me, she encouraged me to do things, achieve things.
I think that's a testament to you.
No, I couldn't have done it without her. I needed somebody. I needed to be longed. I needed to be loved in a motherly way, because I've never had that.
So if you going back to kind of the more difficult parts of being in care, do you think that if you'd had that kind of relationship, people had spent time building that relationship with you in care, you would have had a better outcome?
I think care, when people go in care, when you become an orphan, you're a nobody, because you are an orphan. You don't have a mum, you don't have a dad. It's not as if you've got one or the other to get that support from. You're a nobody, and they know that. And it was like, every time you talk to people in authority, who'd believe you? It was you against the staff. It was always there. I remember being punched in the face by a member of staff and having a black eye, and then at the review meeting it was, oh, she walked into a door. It was always their word against yours. Nobody believed you. Nobody believed. It's okay when social services make a mistake, it's covered under the carpet, like how Frank Beck was. That was a loophole, and he got through it. And he did some awful things to people. I was mentally and verbally abused by him, but there were children in there that were sexually abused by him, and he got away with it for such a long time. When it did all come out in the open, I was 26, I'd got a child. It took all that time for it to come to court, for people to believe in us, but why didn't they believe in us then?
Yeah.
Instead of years down the line. I've got scars. I've got lots of scars, I've got lots of things that have happened to me. I've been beaten, I've been sexually abused, I was near enough left for dead, I've been through hell and back in my life. Horrendous. But to find that one person who believed in you and you could confide in and build up that relationship, it took a long time.